Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Colleen Smith. This is the live podcast when all else fails. I wanted a platform where women can come by, pull up a seat, have a drink, and discuss real life, real, in your face, unedited, unscripted conversations. So for the next hour, pull up a chair, pour a drink, leave a comment, question, suggestion, because when all else fails, we have a conversation and we figure it out. Welcome. Today is May 19th. Happy Sunday. This is episode 2, being biracial, which I have no idea about personally. So this is a great conversation because I've done some research. I've done a lot of research. I have a very blended family, but I know it's not the same. I do have a biracial granddaughter that's going to grow up and need to know the answers to some of these questions that people might have. If you have comments, questions, like I said at the beginning, please feel free to put it in the comment section and we'll answer them while we're live. It's 6:04, so we got about an hour. I do have a biracial guest with me, Victoria.
Hey.
Say hi to everyone.
Hey, guys.
So Victoria's in her 20s. I'll let her tell you. So you grew up.
I grew up biracial, raised only with my mom at first. She's white. My biological father's black. And when I was about 7, she ended up getting married, and she married a white guy, and they had kids together. So in total, I grew up being the only biracial person in my family.
Yeah, so that's pretty tough, I'm assuming.
Very weird.
So we're going to talk about how you grew up and the struggles that you have. But I do want to let you know that while I was doing research, I came across a few things. One question I do want to ask is, because it's a good question, I heard it a bunch of times while I was researching, is what does race mean to you?
To me, race is more of like a category, I guess, that people or things would fall in as a species. I don't see race as ethnicity. I feel like that's a big confusing point for a lot of people. And to me, I mean, we're all human. I never really grew up seeing color because I always felt different. I never knew where I belonged or where I fit in. So I never developed that in my mind to kind of categorize people before I figured it out or before I learned ethnicities or why people look away or act away based off of culture.
Right. That makes sense. And I agree with you. To me, race is a human race. I mean, obviously, you can say, you don't see color, but everyone sees color.
Right.
It's how you define what that means to you. To me, it just means that God created a race with a bunch of beautiful, different-looking people.
Exactly.
So, I don't consider race ethnicities. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
It's a human race, But, I mean, obviously the rest of the country doesn't agree with that.
Right. That's the biggest issue still today. Forever.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people say, it's not a big issue, but it is, because there's people that look like you that walk around every day with, I'm guessing, confliction.
Right.
So I did some research, and in 1967, that's The Loving vs. Virginia. Did you see the movie Loving?
No.
It was a great movie.
I
watched it all alone. It was actually the movie based on Mildred, and I forgot the guy's name, but in 1967, interracial marriages were legalized. So,
wow.
Yeah. So
it's just not like something I don't, I guess, harp on it every day, but even to hear that that was a thing, it had to be legalized.
It had to be legalized.
Like someone had to say, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, the movie Loving is not paying me for this, but I suggest watching that movie because it's a real eye-opener to how things were. And it really wasn't even that long ago, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So, big ups to the Loving family, because
Jeez.
without them, you would not be here.
That's exactly. Hey.
So, so what was the hardest thing for you growing up, do you think?
I think not being able to identify with anyone around me, you know, like I feel like a lot of girls especially like to watch their moms get ready or like to idolize them in a way. And I didn't really have that because the processes would have been totally different. My mom was more like wash and go. And I always had like this crazy hair that wasn't ever, you know, I didn't know what to do with it really for the most part. And I just think I missed out on a lot of experiences growing up without that half. Like there's a lot of things that weren't part of my everyday, like, I don't know, just having a bigger family and having other people that I felt like, it sounds crazy, but when you're small and not seeing anyone that looks like you and that you really feel like, wow, like these are my brothers, these are my sisters, that we have the same features. It was mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
And
when you met your black side of your family.
Yeah, so meeting my black side now at 26 is incredible.
Surreal, I'm sure, because it's a whole, and they're from the South, so that's totally different.
That's totally, like, if I would have grown up there, it would be a whole different person, like the way they cook, the way they speak, dress, everything's different. But just seeing my biological dad and how we have this same face, basically, and I have 4 other brothers that look just like me, it was, I don't know, I'm grateful for it, but it's weird because I mean my mom's still my mom genetically, where you know I'm not adopted, so it's just crazy, so crazy.
That is crazy. So do you identify with? What do you identify with more? Do you feel pressure to identify with more than one race? So do you feel the pressure to identify as a black woman versus a white woman, or? I mean, I know personally, just because I know you, how many people ask you if you're Spanish.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that was an issue growing up as well.
I always felt torn, I guess, between the two. I really didn't know which way to go because I didn't know anything other than white, but I didn't feel like I belonged there really. But I didn't know anything about like my black half,
the culture.
So it was nothing. It was very weird, actually. I was in an all-white school until the end of 3rd grade. I went to a Polish Catholic school.
Oh my goodness.
I was the only black girl in school, only person of any color.
Wait, you're not even Polish, are you?
Polish, French.
Oh, okay.
Black. So I was the only person of color in that school at the time, which was extremely weird. So I begged to go to public school, and once I got there, the city we lived in was predominantly Spanish. Right. So that added another dilemma into my life because I looked similar to a lot of those kids, and I was like, wow, maybe I belong here, maybe I'm Spanish. And then my mom explained to me, you know, black, white, mixed brown, so.
Yeah, and not Spanish.
Very weird, right. That's a whole separate culture.
Well, I wouldn't know how to react as a child, you know, as far as like trying to explain to other children. I feel like that's a process, especially if you're the only brown child in the school.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know when you have parent pickup, all the kids would be like, that's your mom? That's not your mom. Are you adopted? And I'd have to explain like, yeah, that's my mom. My dad's black, but no one ever saw him, neither did I. I mean, I just found him, so it was just like a myth, I guess. Of like, obviously I came from somewhere else, but I didn't know. And
what did you learn going down to meet your dad? Like, your black culture. What did you learn that you didn't know?
I mean,
I think that you kind of got gypped out of for 26 years.
Yeah, I mean, in that aspect, I feel like them being from the South has a big part of it. Southern hospitality is a real thing. Mm-hmm. They're all super close. My grandfather is a war veteran. He built a house, and him and my grandma have been there ever since. They raised my dad and his siblings, and like going forward, all the grandkids, and they have a great grandchild, and they're very close, very family oriented. They're all there helping each other, and I feel like growing up here, I always had a lot of family around me. It just didn't feel complete to me.
Yeah.
And so I know I missed out on a lot of My grandma's an excellent wife and homemaker.
Yeah.
My mom she was in the military. She always worked a lot. And I feel like she didn't have time for those things. And I feel like I missed out on learning a lot of those things from her that I could have learned.
But do you think that's just her character, or because of the fact that she's white?
No, I definitely think that's just her personally, her character. I mean, I know plenty of friends I grew up with, their moms cook. I mean, you cook. You cook. You got to, keep the house, together. But my mom just wasn't that type of person. She was more, about working and providing, not necessarily nurturing. And I feel like if I had a more rounded childhood, I would have learned that elsewhere. Yeah. And I could have taken from my mom her work ethic, and then taken from maybe my grandmother or some of my aunts how they raise kids, keep a home. Yeah.
No, that's good. I actually was in the same boat because my mom was a workaholic, so nobody cooked in my house.
Nope.
I didn't really learn how to make rice the proper way until I married Curtis.
I make bag rice. I still can't make rice.
See? You make bag rice. Yeah. Like an old white lady.
Exactly. So who knows?
So, I mean, tell me a little bit more, like, the struggles that you had, that you, maybe, somebody else listening, or maybe, I mean, I don't know how many kids are going to listen to this because I have a mouth like a trucker. But, maybe for my own benefit, actually, being the fact that, Layla's going to grow up someday. And I hope that she has every opportunity to embrace both sides of her cultures, the white and the black side. Her dad is also biracial, so that's kind of tough on his end, I think. I mean, I think it will be because he's raised by a white mom.
Right, so he's not.
With no father in the picture. However, living in this house, she's being raised by a black man. So maybe she'll get what she needs to benefit from both sides.
She will, because she'll have time with your husband's family as well.
Right.
And then you guys. And I think at least having the mix and looking around, she'll be able to see the spectrum kind of like where she came from and how it makes sense that
balances.
She's tan, curly haired.
Yeah, like you would have a better balance as a person is if you had your dad growing up so you could see both sides.
I mean, definitely. I would have, I guess, I don't want to say it's wasted time because I was able to, I guess I'm happy I was able to deal with it and I didn't end up, hating myself or how I looked or any of that. But I think I would have had a clearer picture of it and I wouldn't have spent so much time wondering, like, why do I look different, or why can I watch my mom and cousins blow dry her hair in 2 seconds and I have a ball of frizz on my head that's unable to be tamed. I think that was one of the biggest things that affected me was just I felt like I was never put together. No one really, I feel like if you have a biracial child or a child, even if you adopt a child that's ethnic, you have to take the time to learn their hair. Skin types are different. Like I can't use the same things on my skin that my mom would use because my skin's very combination. It's different. Or hair, for example, my hair takes a lot of maintenance and it requires someone to, have a little bit of education to be able to deal with it.
Right.
And that wasn't the case. So I literally would just have my hair thrown up and it wasn't maintained at all. And I got bullied a lot in school because after I got bullied when I was in Catholic school because all those kids had silky, dark or blonde hair. When I got to public school, all the Spanish girls knew how to deal with their hair or was a little less coarse than mine. So they, they had it all gelled back and it was presentable. So I got bullied kind of either way or questioned about why I looked a certain way. And that was rough because I couldn't go home and ask for help, really.
But you couldn't go home and ask for help. Did you ever go to your mom and say, I need help, can you find me somebody to help me?
So I did. Eventually, I think I was in 3rd grade. And she took me for the first time to a black salon, which could have been helpful if they just took a look at my natural hair texture and found some alternatives for me, because I have curly hair. It's not necessarily nappy or unmanageable. It just needs conditioner and a little bit of love. And she ended up getting kind of, I think, frustrated with the process, and she got me a chemical relaxer. Which didn't... I mean, if you get a chemical relaxer, that means you are trying to loosen the curl so that you can style it and straighten it. I got it straightened at that salon, and then that was it. Never again. So it wasn't like to help her manage my hair. It was just to get it done that one time, and then
there was no consistency.
Then it just fell off. Yeah, after that, and I would always I never learned my curls. Never. I straightened my hair my whole life because I was just embarrassed.
Yeah.
For no reason. I mean, now everybody wants curls, but I was really dreadfully afraid to have curls.
But it looks cute, so.
It was traumatic.
I mean, I remember when my daughter was pregnant, and before she found out she was having a girl, and she was like, she wanted a boy so bad, and I couldn't figure out, why do you want a boy? Like, why do you want a boy? And finally she was like, I really do want a girl. However, I'm afraid that she's going to have her dad's hair, and I'm not going to be able to do it. Like, this was an actual concern for her. So I applaud her, because I do see women out there with mixed children, and their hair looks absolutely crazy. Yeah. I don't understand why you just can't take a brush and put it in a ponytail if you don't know what you're doing. Or go somewhere.
Yeah, go somewhere, braid it. Even, at least now, so I was born in the early 90s, so I will give my mom that. It wasn't like now. There's a YouTube video. There's somebody on every corner that can help you.
There's a tutorial for something.
At least your daughter will have that if if no one else can help her. But I just wish, I mean, my mom always, ironically, had a lot of black friends. Yeah. And so it was just...
So none of them did
weird to me. No. I did get my hair braided once. But I mean, throughout my life, it was literally a free-for-all. Like, we could put up photos.
She was just embarrassed to ask her friends?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe she felt insecure about it. Or just, insecure about the fact that she didn't know. It could have been that. And I mean, I would completely understand that. But I did end up learning at least how to straighten my hair. And I would set off every smoke detector in the house. I would blow dry my hair for hours. I didn't care. I was going to get it straight, and that was it. So, thank God that's over with.
I mean, thank God I figured out how to use a flat iron, because I'm all white and my hair's fucking crazy. Yeah. I can't do this shit myself.
You have a particular hair texture.
And I'm like, I'll be the bougie bitch that goes and gets her hair blow dried once a week because I can't do it myself.
And that's how I feel. I mean, even, me, if that's how I wanted to be, I would have to do it too. It's just when you're a kid, you have no idea, you have no money. And, I mean, that's what I would want for my children. I'm sure I'll end up having children with some crazy hair, and I'll be prepared for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so... while I was researching a little bit more, I actually found something that was very surprising to me, because I assumed that the most common interracial marriages happen between black and white. You would assume that.
Right.
However, what I found out is the most common interracial marriages are actually Asian and white, which is weird. But the reason why you don't hear about this is because, according to a couple of the things that I read and watched, is because these interracial, these biracial children from white and Asian descent only identify with their white side. Like, when they're checking off boxes, which is a whole other category.
Yeah.
When they're checking off boxes or whatever, they identify themselves as white. And I found this interesting because... I don't know. I mean, you can give me your opinion, and anyone else, that's listening in. There has to be a reason, but I wish I knew what it was. Would you identify yourself as a black woman, or do you just say I'm mixed?
I usually just say I'm mixed.
Okay.
Which, I mean, to each his own. I know everybody would have a different opinion of that. Like, a lot of people would say if you were raised white, then you're white. And then black people say, no, you're mixed, you're black. But I really do feel in the middle because...
Now, did you were picked on in school because you went to an all-white school. Was there anybody, like any girls or boys that were black in your town that identified, like, that you could hang out with or talk to about it? Or
No, not at all. I was an only child until I was 7, and I spent all my time with my grandmother. If I wasn't at school, I was home with adults, either my grandmother mostly or my parents. My mom and then my stepdad came in the picture around that time. So shortly after, she got pregnant and I had a little sister, but other than that, I was alone until middle school. I started having friends over a lot, but I never talked about it because most of them were either Spanish or white, so
yeah,
there wasn't a lot of black people in my neighborhood in general growing up. So that was always interesting to me as well. I always wondered why I didn't see...
I wonder why your mom would, I mean, I guess everyone has their reasons, choose to keep you, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, in the environment and not broaden your environment to be around other people, so you're not questioning, like, why is everyone so pale?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I wonder if it's just because I don't think 100% that she didn't care.
Yeah.
I just think maybe...
Just ignorance?
Yes, or maybe, just thinking, like, I had a good life as a kid growing up. I mean, I had my mom and stepdad, and I had my grandma always around me to take care of my every beck and call, basically. I had toys, I had everything. So maybe subconsciously that was, like, she was compensating for that side that she knew she could never give me anyways, and that's not her fault, but
yeah,
maybe she just didn't think it was that important or that it would affect me as much because I had all those other things.
So another thing that I was watching, and it really blew my mind, and like I said, and I'll say it again for those people who are just tuning in, I don't know anything about this. This is just when all else fails, we have a fucking conversation because I don't have a clue, and I feel like people need to know these things. I watched a video on, I think her name was Rachel Mallinson. Did you hear about this? Miss Black Universe of Texas. She won Miss Black Universe of Texas. She's biracial. And the black community just ran her over with her not being black enough. Because she was literally the lightest person on the panel, but she wasn't black enough. So they were trying to take it away from her.
Wow.
So, and I mean, if anyone wants to go and look at, her name is Rachel Mellinson, Miss Black Universe of Texas. It's a predominantly black sorority that she's in, I think. Maybe even the school. I don't really know the whole aspect of it, but it was really interesting. Like, you really feel for this girl. So then I had to do some more research as far as, like, because it goes in, and I mean, the next YouTube is about light skin privilege. You hear about white privilege, and now there's light skin privilege. And then it goes on to say how black women and white women were pitted against each other because of white privilege. Because there's also a form, going back to Asian and white, Asian men and black women are the least chosen on online dating, which is very strange to me.
It is.
It's so crazy. So I guess Asian men, what they were saying was they're often demasculated, as men. They're not seen as real men. And no offense to any Asian man that is listening,
right,
because I don't feel that way. But this is a whole bunch of research that says that this is how people feel. You look at, I don't know, Jackie Chan in movies. Yeah, he's great and everything, but does he get the girl? He doesn't get the girl.
No.
So
You wonder where this comes from. Like this, 'cause this is all something that's in people's heads somewhere,
right.
like either deep in their mind or some people, you know, it's right up front, but it's like, where does that come from?
Right.
It's, I don't know. I mean, until I got older and started, you know, venturing out, going to college. I went to college in the South, in Nashville. And so there's a huge, it's a very diverse city, but it almost appears 50-50. There's a lot of white people and there's a lot of black people. Mm-hmm. And then there's, you know,
is it segregated?
Then you can tell that there's a lot of mixed people, or maybe people that are fully black, they're just lighter, or you don't really know. There's a lot of Mexicans in different areas, and it does feel segregated. The only thing that mixes everything together, I've found, were the arts and sports. I mean, you can't, you know,
that's when people come together.
A huge college, yeah,
right.
It's a huge college city, so, you know, naturally, if you're on a team, those, you know, you build relationships and they become your friends. So there are a lot of, you know, pairs of friends that you might not see elsewhere. But that's the first time that I realized the concept of not being black enough or being too black, which I always considered myself right in the middle. But anytime I had created or got in contact with a group of friends that were white, it was always a little weird, like subliminal types of interactions that were like, oh, like I knew I was different from them and that they saw it that way. They grew up different, sense of style, hairstyles, all of that was different. So cool. So then you move on and you try to make black friends to see if you can identify there. And that's still weird because light skin privilege, in my case, I'm not black enough for a lot of black people.
Right.
And either way, it always put me in a weird position. I always feel like personality-wise, I could mesh with anyone that I find.
Yeah, I think so.
And so it was just weird to me that you can tell people are feeling that. And I never understood where that came from. Like, why does it matter? What does it matter what I am anyway, but I'm not black enough or I'm too black is weird. Like, yeah, it's so weird that anyone cares.
You're just like, okay, well, who am I then? You know?
That's why.
That's got to be tough. It's got to be tough. And I wonder if it goes back to the whole, you know, thing that I was reading about white women and black women being pitted against each other for centuries, as far as dating and, you know, just educational wise, things like that, where black women, for some reason, don't get recognized the way they should be.
Right.
So, I don't know, it possibly comes down to that as far as you not being dark enough, you know?
Yeah.
Because you might be considered white. Your mom was white, you were raised white. I don't know. I would love to know. I would love listeners to chime in and tell me
I know
why this is the way it is. Because I feel like it's tough. I wouldn't say, in my opinion, that you have it as hard as a black woman.
Not at all. I wouldn't say that either.
Right. But I don't feel like you have it as easy as a white woman. You're somewhere in the middle of that spectrum, which is not fair because
it's just like this weird world that will never be, you know, determined how people react to you. You know, some people just will fully embrace it because they're like, hey, I don't know what you are. You know, you're tan, you have dark hair,
right,
darker eyes. I don't know what you are, so hey. And then some people, you know, they just try so hard to figure it out. And it's just weird, even in terms of dating. Like, when you are right in the middle, you notice that out of every guy that I've dated, which that sounds like it's a long list.
It is. But don't let her fool you, it is. It's a fucking huge list.
There has been one white person, one white man I dated. And I've dated a few black men and mostly Spanish men. And I really feel like that has a lot to do with the way dating goes and just who's looking for who. Like, I feel like at certain time frames in life, I mean, I'm thankful that it's being more glorified. Black is beautiful, and a lot of people
Absolutely.
are realizing, like, why is this happening? Why were we not looking at these black women or these dark chocolate men? Like, they're elite. They look beautiful. It's different.
Right.
And so, but at that time frame, I feel like the light skin privilege was really at an all-time high when I started dating. And I feel like Spanish men were looking for a light-skinned chick because even there's, darker Spanish people from all these countries, and
Right.
they're not looking for the darker women, or the women aren't looking for the darker men. They're looking for someone in the middle or someone more light-skinned.
And why is it that?
I think somewhere along the lines, I mean, we must have been brainwashed into thinking wow,
that
look at
the
this
lighter
tan
you
skin
are,
or this pale skin,
exactly,
look how beautiful it is, and everyone just disregarded the fact,
right? Which is, I think, what happened with this whole Miss Texas, because she was the lightest girl on the panel. She was bullied, basically, because they're like, oh, of course, they're going to choose the lightest person on the panel, which might be the case.
It might be
subliminal saying, okay, she's the lightest on the panel, and somewhere in this world we've been brainwashed to say that the lighter you are, the prettier you are, and you should be Miss Texas. However, even if that's the case, that's not her fault to say that she's not black enough.
Right. But she'll have to deal with that.
Yes.
For as long as it goes on. She'll have to deal with it. And I think it's crazy that after all these years, I feel like character is still not at the top of the list.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, for example, maybe she just had the best character in the all-around package for what they were looking for.
Right.
And
maybe it had nothing to do with
that's why
the way
they chose
she
her,
looked.
but it doesn't matter. They're going to say it's because of that. I mean...
And like I said, it could be because of that, because you never know. Especially nowadays where, the president has given the okay to just be blatantly racist.
Yeah, just run around.
For anyone.
Just don't hold your tongue anymore. Just
exactly.
let it out.
So I do have a question from one of our listeners asking did you feel like you had a disadvantage going to a predominantly white school?
I do feel like I had a disadvantage because when I was at that school was preschool to third grade, and I feel like that's a time frame where your little brain is working extra hard to notice your surroundings and notice who's around you and kind of who you are as a little person at that time. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was at a disadvantage because I wasn't exposed to other cultures or habits or even looks. Like, I wasn't exposed to anything different. Everyone literally had blonde hair, blue eyes, dark hair, green eyes, blue eyes.
Right.
And I just didn't see any diversity, and I feel like that's unhealthy. Because then I had even more questions. I
do feel like it's unhealthy. I mean, I feel like I was more exposed to different cultures than you were, unfortunately. And I know this just from, we were in a room one day, and there was another biracial person in the room who was actually raised with her black father. And we were listening to music, and it was Luther Vandross, and you had no idea, but she was singing every line because you didn't grow up with that. Mm-hmm. I grew up with it somehow. She grew up with it, but you didn't.
I'd have no idea.
So you're like, oh, well, if you play some Neil Diamond, I'll know what...
Oh my god, that is true, and I feel like there's
you kind of got screwed.
A lot of things that would have made me more well-rounded, just culturally, music, films, even that I had no idea about, even historical events that I probably just went right over my head. I never knew about, and I felt like I always did well in school, but the disadvantage came from me being distracted. Because I was so distracted looking around, wondering, like, is this... So at home, when kids see one thing at home, maybe you come from a very, if you come from an Asian family and your family still practices a lot of the culture from whatever country you come from, you see that at home and that's what you know. But if you go to school, you see Americans, you see, how different Americans are, like how Spanish people living here are, what they bring for lunch, how, what the white kids bring, what the black kids bring, and just how they dress and all the differences. And then you can still go home and you're still Asian and you still have your culture, but you know others. I didn't have that. Whatever I saw at home was at school. So it
was a disadvantage.
It was mind-blowing because I was literally thinking, am I the only one? Like, why? And I feel internally, I felt different. I felt like I was somewhere I didn't belong. And not that I didn't feel loved, I just felt weird.
Like something was missing.
Yeah, something. And I didn't know at that time. Now I know because I found the other side of it, and I feel, you know, a little sad that I missed it, but I feel happy that I have the rest of my life to kind of explore.
College must have been like a culture shock to you.
Mm-hmm. High school, yeah, like I said, was mostly, you know, just white kids, Spanish kids from the city I grew up in.
Right.
That's just, you know, but going to college was a culture shock because in college there's no telling who's coming there. I mean, we had colleges in Nashville, they have contracts with like Malaysia or other countries, so there was so many different kids there, and I mean that was honestly the favorite part of my education.
Yeah.
Just because of that, you didn't have to worry really. I mean, there were, like I said, you know, the weird dilemmas like I don't fit in with this group. They're you know, in an AKA sorority, which is predominantly black, and they're like, okay, this is a black sorority. Why are you over here? Like I mean, it's like they can see, they can tell. I mean, there's full black people that are the same skin tone as me.
Yeah, definitely.
And they don't question though. They're like, you're not black. Like, they'll know. And it gave me a complex for a while. Like I knew people knew. It's like if you're high and you go somewhere and you're like, oh my God, they know I'm high. They know I'm high. They know I'm high. So like they know I'm mixed. They know I'm mixed, or they think I'm just. They don't know. You know, it was so weird my whole life. But I mean, now, to me, that's, you know, it's over with in my life. Wherever I go, it's kind of like, people ask me, I'll more than happily tell them, but I don't really care.
You've gotten comfortable.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with it. I mean, I feel blessed to be biracial because, I mean, I feel like I have a good amount of features from both sides and things that, you know, they make things easier for me. I feel like this point in my life, I can kind of throw myself into any circle. I mean, now I have friends from everywhere because people in my age group are past that now. But like when we were kids, it was just weird. There wasn't as much social media. Now with social media, I mean...
So do you think like Layla, do you think she'll have an easier time than you had?
I do. I think she'll have a very... I mean, of course, you know, it's relative. Everyone will find something that affects them or some type of struggle, but I'm happy for her that she gets to grow up in a mixed family because she'll, like I said, she'll see a spectrum and she'll see a bunch of different but beautiful faces, and she won't think like, where do I go? Right.
And what about out of the house, though? What about at school?
Yeah, out of the house, she'll be great because I think, honestly, now I've seen more mixed-looking children than ever. And I don't know.
I'm waiting for the whole world to be mixed and nobody can be racist anymore.
Exactly. And I don't... I mean, I did read National Geographic said by like 2040 or around there, like
really?
everyone's going to be some type of tan with some different, you know, different features, more curls in their hair, different eyes, because there's so many... ethnicities that are just blended and producing a bunch of different children. I mean, even, for example, the Kardashian bloodline. Yeah. From now going forward, I mean, with the exception of Courtney's side. Yeah. There's going to be interracial, you know, children there, and
they're no longer Armenian.
Exactly. So, I mean,
they are Armenian.
They are,
but
not fully. And so I think it's a beautiful thing. Even... It's just helpful for kids. Like when Layla starts watching like TV, every commercial is going to have a mixed looking kid, an Asian kid, a white kid, a black kid. And
which is great. Well, I see what, you know, like the Cheerios commercial is trying to do. I see what they're trying to do as far as blending the families when they're making commercials.
And I think that's
some
helpful.
Overdo it.
Yeah, like you can tell, like hard. Obviously, yeah.
They're like, all right, I know this is the only reason why you did it.
But I'd rather them try a little bit than, you know, leave kids just blind and wondering. Yeah. They're innocent at that point, so they won't see it like we see it. We know that it's a whole scheme, but I'm just happy that, she won't have that at all. And in school, everyone's going to look, you know, different as well. So I feel happy for kids now that are growing up mixed. They won't have... And social media at every age now is so popular. You get to see everything on the internet.
Yeah, definitely.
Like when I was younger, you had to wait for your mom to get off the phone to log into the computer and barely get on MySpace before someone calls again.
When I was younger, there was no MySpace.
Yeah, well.
Okay. You had to wait for your mom to get off the phone so you could call a friend and say hello. There was no texting.
Well, I had T9 texting address.
Call the operator, ask for the time.
Yeah, you had to press 1 3 times to get the letter C. It was a time, but at least now with the exposure, I mean, they'll be able to, I guess, even if, they're going through something or they feel like they can't identify with anyone right near them or in their household, they can find. It's easier now. Like
I mean, that's how I did all of my research. Is literally like Google and YouTube. Basically, being biracial in America, being biracial. There's millions of videos and information that you can get. And it's really interesting. Like I said, I didn't realize how detrimental it is to someone who has lived their entire life biracial. So if you could give any... Let me see. I mean, because you're both, you don't have any children, but what's one thing that you wish that your mom, aside from your hair, that your mom made you aware of when you were little?
I wish, to be honest, I guess, that she made me aware that being different... I wish she emphasized, I guess, that feeling or looking or being different was as beautiful as it really is. I mean, now everybody's a clone of everybody. Mm-hmm. And so really being different or really feeling a different way than everyone else around you, I wish she just emphasized to me that it was okay. And that, like, I shouldn't be, like, down on myself or try to be somebody else or try to act like someone else because I felt weird. I wish I knew that it was okay so that I could have just accepted it earlier, because now I totally accept that I'm who I am and I love it. But I wish when I was small, like, I learned that because I wasted a lot of time being sad or confused as to, you know, what was going on. And I wish, even though she's white, I wish, like, I had other things, like other books maybe that had black kids in it, or movies more so that had more black people, just so that I saw it and that she would say, like, hey, like, this is...
Because that is part of your
heritage. Your other half, like, this is the type of other family you would have somewhere out there, or, you know, black is beautiful, at least, so that I felt like, you know, that I didn't have to, like...
Layla can watch Doc McStuffins.
Yeah.
Which is great that they have this little black girl on TV that you wouldn't have seen 20 years ago. No. She's a little girl who thinks she's a doctor. I mean... And takes care of all the animals.
20 years ago, when I was either getting Barbies or playing princesses with my cousins, there was no one for me to be.
Right.
You know, we all had to be a character and pick a character. The closest thing I had was Jasmine or Pocahontas, but clearly they're not black, they're just tan because...
Well, Jasmine is...
some type of Middle Eastern. And then Pocahontas is Native American.
Yes.
And so, you know what I mean? But that was visually...
But they're going off of your skin tone and not your background.
So visually, as a kid, I'm like, well, I have to pick one of these. Right. Because I can't pop out and say I'm Cinderella. It doesn't make any sense. And even, oddly enough, we all got Barbies for every Christmas and birthdays, and I did get mostly... There was one Barbie named Teresa, and I think she was Spanish. And
really?
Then she was dark. She was tan with dark hair, and I would get either her or the black Barbie, and I always had black Kens. So someone somewhere tried, but at the same time, I was kind of like, okay, so we're only going to talk about this when we're passing out Barbies. Like,
and I think weird, like adults don't realize that little kids they notice.
Yeah,
like you'll notice.
I definitely was like, okay.
I know when my daughter was little, we lived in a complex that was predominantly African. So the little girl downstairs was African that my daughter played with. She was like 2 at the time, and I went to take her to get a doll, and she picked out the brown doll because her best friend was brown. Yeah. So
she had a natural
and she was
love
2.
For it. Like,
she was like, oh, I need this baby doll. And I remember her dad like, why does she have a brown doll? Because that's the one she wanted.
She wanted that doll. Yes, there's something that resonated with her.
Yeah, they know. And I just wish that the adults around them knew more that it's okay to look different, be different. I mean, I'm not even mixed, and I'll tell you that I had issues when I was little because I didn't look like the rest of the girls in my neighborhood. I had crazy frizzy hair because there was no flat irons in that time. So I had this crazy frizzy hair, and I'm covered in freckles, and nobody else looked like that. Nope. You know,
and nobody else bright eyes as well, so that added to it.
Everyone's always like, what are those dots? Oh, look at all those freckles. In my entire life being little, it was really like it was hard to deal with it because it took a long time before I could embrace the fact that I'm covered in freckles. I have brown spots all over my skin. Yeah. So I cannot imagine, because that something that small has nothing to do with anything as big as not fitting in because you're black and you're white. Like, what box do you pick?
Other.
Yeah, other. So I also read that now some states actually have black and white, Asian and black. They have these boxes, so you're not clicking off other, which I think is great. Like, list 100 of them. If you have to take a whole page to list them, then list 100 of them. So people who are biracial of any kind, black, white, Asian, black, whatever, don't have to pick other. You're not just other.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was like things like MCAS or SAT, which it's already weird that they have you do that so they can, take a look at scores versus ethnicities and see where that lines up, whatever. They only let you check one box. So I would always check the other box because I couldn't say white or black. So I would check the other box and then write it on the line.
You would write what you are.
Yeah, I'd write black and white because I didn't know what to do.
It's pretty sad. So, I mean, anybody who has any comments, who have dealt with anything like this, definitely, leave it in the comment box. If you have any solutions to our questions, because we don't have any solutions, do you have anything else you want to talk about as far as growing up and dealing with the things that you've had to deal with?
No, I think, that's the majority of it, has already been said. I just hope that everyone who's either already has a mixed family or is creating one, make sure that whether you're Spanish and white or black and Spanish, whatever it is, just make sure that your kids have enough of each side of their culture so that they're more well-rounded, and so they don't feel like they just came from, there's not much, to identify if you don't embrace it.
Absolutely.
And so for me to pass on to my children, in my case, it's basically going to be everything I've learned myself as an adult, and I'm going to create my own, my own ways of life, and I'll pass that on because I don't really have much to, carry over.
Yeah, and once you have babies for me, your babies will be white, black, and Dominican.
Yes. And so
that's good.
Yeah, we'll prepare for their hair in advance.
So I'm sure you have some life lessons on you're creating some things as well in your own personal life.
Yes, pretty soon I will be putting a YouTube channel together so I can talk about, anything like this, things that are important to me, talk about why my first video should be coming out within the month of June, I'm hoping, and that's about me cutting my hair off, which also ties into this because I've always been just kind of held down by it because it was a big deal for me. It caused bullying. It's just a lot of stress. So I'm older now. I've embraced it. So I chopped it off to start over. And so my first video will be about that. As soon as I map everything out and find a name, we can.
A bunch of bitches sitting around the table?
Yes.
That should have been the name of this, by the way, for anyone who missed the first episode.
You looking forward to a rebrand 2019?
Well, time's up for this episode. Thank you to Victoria for coming by today and to everyone listening in.
Thank you, guys.
This podcast will air probably around 6 o'clock every Sunday. It is live, so we try and get it around the same time. If you have suggestions on a topic or you want to be a guest, tell me, every woman has a life story they want to talk about. So I'm here to listen, and we'll see what we can do. You can reach out to lowkeyconvos@gmail.com. That's LOKEYCONVOS@gmail.com. Speaking of low-key conversations, hosted by my amazing husband, Curtis Smith, and myself. Usually we air it exclusively on YouTube. However, we are going live at 8 o'clock. So if you didn't get enough of me, I'm already 3 drinks in. We're about to go live. So I'll put the link in case you can't make it for the live. You can reach us on YouTube. I'll put it in. Subscribe, like, share. Have a fabulous week. Bye.